DNJ's Epic Quest. DNJ's Epic Quest. DNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. It has been a hot minute. This is D-Hole, and we've got
Jug.
D-Hole and Jug. Everybody's two favorite friends back together again.
Shouldn't it be D-Hole?
I like D-Hole.
Oh, man.
Yeah, dude, it's been a bit since we've been able to record for a number of reasons. We've been busy. You're probably not coming here for our politics, but Minnesota's kind of been a hellscape here lately.
Oh, God, yeah.
A guy that I play hockey with is former Special Forces, and he's got friends in, like, Florida, and they're asking him if it's real, like what they're seeing on the news is real, because they think it's all being altered. And he's like, no, it's 100% real. So if you're watching the news and you're like questioning if it's real, it is that bad.
Yeah. I mean, I work in downtown Minneapolis. I run on the outskirts of downtown Minneapolis, and yes, I do see ICE cars, ICE agents, when I'm driving into work.
Yeah, and it's I don't know about for you, but it's really been like grating on me. It was really hard to get into the headspace to like type and everything. So and we've just both been busy too. So I feel like there's always part of the year where that hits. But
yeah, robotics has kicked up again, so we're officially in our season. We just got done with the holidays.
Yeah, so we're doing this as we can. Still, no giving up. Yeah, how have you been, man? What else is new?
Well, I just took a certification for my job, and I did not do well.
Yeah, you told me. I won't repeat it, so I guess I'll leave that to you whether you do or don't.
Well, I mean, I think it's more just the fact that there were a lot of questions that I didn't answer because I just didn't have time. You know, they gave you 2 hours. And then they give you this, like, elaborate scenario that you have to design based on the things that you learn throughout the week. And it's just like, okay, cool. As pieces, I understand them somewhat. But, like, combining them all together to get this output, I'm like, what? And then things wouldn't work because it's coding, it's scripting. You know, so then I would spend a lot of time troubleshooting why it wasn't working. So, yeah, it's all good.
There's next time. You'll get it.
Better luck next time. Yep.
Right. Yeah.
What about you, dude?
You'll be more prepared next time. Now you kind of know what it's about. So
yeah.
I don't remember if I told you, but I'm going to be a judge in a book competition. You've heard of the Spitbo book competition, right?
Yeah, you told me about this.
I did. Okay. I'm not going to be a judge in that, kind of a secondary one for people who didn't make it into that, because there's so many books that don't make it. So I think it's safe to share the books I'm going to be reading here, because this episode will come out quite a ways down the road.
I don't know. I'm going to do this one next.
Justify with me. So the first book, I'm going to read these books physically as well, just because that's my preference. But I got this book here. Maybe I need to like turn off my blurring, but it is called The Sea Dragon's Vault. That'll be the first one I'm reading. The next one I'll be reading is The Winds of War. Again, sorry, the blurry screen's not doing me any favors. And then the last one will be The Silver Chair. So
is this like a scholastic book fair? type thing where like you pick your books you want to judge and then they send them to you, or what?
Nope, another author started this up just because he's tried to get into Spiffbo for 3 years and never was lucky enough to make it. And I'm sure there's other authors that kind of, similar boat. So he decided to create a secondary one for authors to have another shot. He's called it Ebor, Indie Blog Off Remnants. Yeah, so he got submissions from authors, got the judges lined up, and then he just did like a randomized wheel to dole out the books to who. So
Gotcha.
that'll start the beginning of next month, or sort of like 5-6 days from now. So
each book is judged by somebody else.
So I think there's 17 judges, and I think there's 60 books. So we each read 3. We pick our favorite out of the 3 to advance to the next round. And then I don't remember after that if we read another 3 books or if it's just one. But basically in like 6 months, we'll whittle it down to a champion.
Gotcha. Damn, I don't know if I'd be able to keep up with that.
I mean, 1 book a month I think I can do. And they're 400-ish pages each one that I've got. There might be some longer books out there. I don't know. So
interesting.
It should be okay.
Maybe I'll have to be a judge next year.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Well, should we list off our patrons here?
Yeah, go for it, man.
We have Jan the Picker, Luciana Etrigan, Ryan the Topological, Damien Face in the Rock, Nate Fiddle Me This, Shield Anvil Dylan, Calvin He Who Witnessed, Livia the Malazan Potato, Aaron Mott Irregular, Scott the Only, Graceless Passion, Dead Smell, Jess Riant, My Own Genesis, Alex the High Mage, Tyler the Great Raven, The Joyful Union, Tony the Watch, Steve Bottle Kegs, The Mortal Sam, John I'd Kill the Mule, Tuck the Middle Child, and we've got Peter and Turin, who both joined around the beginning of December. Our apologies. I think we might have missed one of you in the last recording we did, but we still need nicknames from you guys. So when you eventually hear this, think of something, send it our way, or let us know if you want us to think of something for you. I'm sure we could do that.
Hopefully. Well, we have 2 epigraphs because we're starting book 2, Prowls of the Day. So do you want to read the Prowls of the Day epigraph, or do you want me to read that one?
I mean, if you want, you can take them both. That's fine with me.
All right. So, Prowls of the Day, Book 2 in Midnight Tides. We are seized in the age of our youth, dragged over this road's stones, spent and burdened by your desires, and unshod hooves clatter beneath bones, to remind us of every fateful change upon the hills you have sown with frozen seeds, in this dead earth. Swallowing ground and grinding bit, we climb into the sky so alone, in our fretted ways, a heaving of limbs, and the iron stars burst from your heels, baffling urgency, warning us of your savage bite. Destriers, sons to fathers, Fisher Keltoth. Chapter 6, Epigraph from Midnight Tides. The errant bends fate, as unseen armor lifting to blunt the blade on a field sudden with battle, and the crowd jostles, blind, their eyes gouged out, by the strait of these affairs, where dark fools dance on tiles, and chance rides a spear with red bronze, to spit worlds like skulls, once upon the other, until the seas pour down, to thicken metal-clad hands. So this, then, is the errant, who guides every fate, unerring, upon the breast of men. The casting of tiles, Sita, Ankaran Khan, 1059 Burn Sleep. So I put a note in there that was 5 years before the prologue of Gardens of the Moon, but 2 years prior to the events of Gardens of the Moon.
You also have more there, it looks like.
Oh, yeah. I find it interesting that the beginning of each line is a capital. Not sure if that's anything, or if that's like a formatting thing, but I feel like usually they're not always capital.
I guess I haven't paid attention if that's been the case or not, but maybe, it's just some sort of home format thing.
Well, and I even was stupid, and I wrote down each of the letters thinking that it was like the weird
Just gonna
saying.
spell something out.
I mean, the first 5 lines spell tallow, which in the beginning of Gardens of the Moon, we talk about tallow candles. So,
Weird.
I'm sure that's very unintended, but...
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure tallow has 2 L's in it, whereas this just has 1. So,
Sure. And then the rest, is just gibberish after that.
Just gibberish, yep.
All right. Well, we ready to dive into this?
Yeah, let's divvy.
All right. The Terranseed Tower rose from Trait's harbor. It was not a pretty thing, as it was made from raw basalt, reaching to the sky like a gnarled arm, while waves crashed into it from all sides. It had no windows, no doors, but the uppermost level was ringed with obsidian plates that were roughly man-sized, in height and width. 9 similar towers rose above the borderlands, but the Terranseed was the only that stood above the sea. The sun was vivid against the obsidian. A dozen fishing boats moved about the choppy water beyond the bay, heading towards the shallows to the south. They were not in the sea lanes and probably didn't even notice the 3 ships to the north as they headed to the harbor. The 3 harvest ships reflected in the obsidian plates on top of the tower. The man who was going to use a small boat to tie the ships to the dock suddenly backed his boat away as shapes swarmed across the rigging of the first ship. The wind that brought the ships suddenly disappeared, and the vaguely human shapes seemed to drift away, while the man in the small boat rang an alarm bell. Not steady, but harsh and full of panic. Again, I just finished listening to the last episode you put out. What was that, chapter 3?
2, 3. You're right.
3. And again, just I'm feeling these horror vibes again, and I don't think I did a very good job describing, the tower in our summary compared to how it's described in the book. Parse that down some, but it just seems very dark and ominous and mysterious. No doors, no windows, but there's these man-shaped things at the top. And then, we see these wraith, I'm assuming wraith shapes, skittering around and stuff, and it's just eerie.
Yeah.
And then this guy just goes to ring, the bell of panic.
Mm-hmm. The point of summarizing is to summarize, right? Those types of intricate details. And I do it too. And, part of me it feels guilty that I'm not describing it to its justice. But, their job is just to summarize, not... we could just reread the whole book or the whole chapter every time we do this.
Yeah, I don't know if that would get us in trouble or not.
So it's probably a good thing. But I would agree. Yeah, very ominous, very horror-ish vibes. I don't know if you caught, it's not in this section, but it's in the section after this, section 2. There is a connection.
I guess you will have to bring it up. I'm not thinking of anything right now. Again, I think part of the difficulty with this book right now is just how spaced out we've been compared to other books. So it's been maybe a little harder to retain information. So
sure,
we'll see. Maybe it'll ring a bell, though. We'll see.
Yeah, and if not, I'd be happy to enlighten you and share. I'm not going to hoard that secret and make you figure it out or anything like that. So, yeah.
Good. Well, I probably would just give up and move on. So.
Fair enough. But yeah, we'll have to make sure that we're more diligent about getting chapters read and episodes out.
We're not professionals.
It's been busy. It's been very busy lately. And, especially as you said at the beginning of the episode, all that's kind of happening in our world is pretty distressing. So, anyway, Section 2 here. No sailor that lived or ever lived would discredit the sea's hungry depths. Ancient spirits rode the currents of darkness far from the sun's light. Their power was immense, and their appetites were insatiable. All that came down from the lit world above settled into their grasp. Every sailor knew that the surface of the sea was short-lived. Sailors don't like to pray for safe passage, but sometimes it was needed to escape untaken. None sought to call up the spirits from the depths. They were not things that could be bound nor bargained with. Their hearts were the cycles of the moon, Their voice was the heaving storm, and their wings stretched from horizon to horizon in towering sheets of water that could sweep anything before them. Beneath the waves of Trade Harbor, with 3 dead ships like fins on its back, the bound spirit worked the cold currents towards the shore. The spirit lifted the ships, careening on a single wave that rose high as it swelled towards the coastline. The docks, which a moment before were crowded with people, was now empty. The wave tumbled closer, then suddenly fell away. Hulls broke at the sudden plunge, parts of the ships broke, and on the 3rd ship the mainmast shattered. Pressures drew inward, and the spirit withdrew from the bay, leaving behind nothing but devastation. The 1st ship crunched and slid against a pier, and then came to a gentle rest. The gulls swung down to the decks to begin their long-awaited feeding. The Terran Tower had witnessed all, and in the cold chamber beneath the old palace in the city of Letheri, Sita Kuru Khan watched. Before him lay a tile that matched those of the distant tower above Trade's harbor, and as he stared at the enormous black shadow that had filled the bay, the sorcerer blinked sweat from his eyes and focused his attention on the 3 harvest ships lolling against the piers. The gulls and the gathering darkness didn't allow him to see much, but he had seen enough.
All right.
Brad. My first thought or comment is about the spirits rode the currents of darkness far from the sun's light. And I feel like this makes sense for the canon I had in my head. This is how I believed Moonspawn could disappear when we were reading Memories of Ice, because it was essentially hiding in the depths of Coral Harbor or whatever that was.
Yeah,
So
I don't remember what they called it exactly, but
yeah, it matched what I had kind of already thought about, and like some of the themes that had been brought up in Memories of Ice, around the Darkness Warren and Corald Ghislaine. So, yeah, it was kind of cool to just have that reaffirmed, and that maybe I wasn't crazy, but I also think it's really cool because I was in an art history class when I was in college, and they were talking about Christianity and paintings of hell, right? And originally what it had been depicted as was cold, because you're furthest away from God's light, which
I feel like I've heard a little bit of that before, but
right. But and then like it wasn't extreme, right? Like, I mean, in theory, those depictions made sense, but it wasn't scary. You know what I mean? So then they translated to fire, which was a lot more scary to people viewing, like burning forever, right? Like,
sure,
that's painful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it for some reason there's a relation there, and I just think it's cool. All right, next. Every sailor knew that the surface of the sea was short-lived, and that kind of ties into the all that came down from the lit world above settled into their grasp, right? Like, I immediately think of like a sunken ship, bodies, things from above have sunk to go below. Little Mermaid, right? Her treasures of her cave of treasures, right? Her Thingle Hopper came from above.
Sure. I would not have drawn a comparison of a Disney movie to Midnight Tides, but I'm glad you did.
I did it. I'm the first to do it.
You might be. You could be. I don't know.
All right. Well, we gotta market this. Malazan and Disney.
So that means that Shirk is a Disney princess.
Yes, and her oodaloo.
Oh boy, we're getting some weird Disney.
Yeah, man, that was I don't know. I'm excited to get to that part, but I'm not. So, yeah, okay, right. My actual comment. I just love that because sooner or later one ends up below the surface.
Sure.
When they talk about their hearts, and I'm assuming they're referring to the spirits of the depths, right? Their hearts were the cycles of the moon, their voice was the heaving storm, and their wings stretched from horizon to horizon in towering sheets of water that could sweep anything before them. And I love the personification of the sea here. I remember hearing as a little kid that the ocean tides are dictated by the moon's orbit, right?
Yep.
And while I get the sense that he's referring to as spirits are maybe natural phenomenon with sea/water, floods, hurricanes, storms, etc., I get the feeling that being that it's so dark at the bottom of standing deep water, that it's very true, the realm of darkness lives there. Along with what I'm imagining other creatures that exist in the Warren of Darkness.
Nice.
Because, I mean, it's hard as hell to get down there, right? And there's so much of the ocean, even in our world, that hasn't been explored. I would imagine that there's some similarities there, so what better place to hide? A Warren.
Yeah.
You had a comment here.
I think you had one more before that.
Nope. Oh, I had bound. Yeah. I thought that was an interesting word choice. Earlier it said that spirits couldn't be bound, so I'm guessing this bound spirit is the sea itself, and it really reminds me a lot of the whirlwind. And I wonder if there's something there that will reveal itself in time? Mael, maybe? It seems that there is a bound spirit.
The only reason it would make me think it's not male is because they do bring that up somewhere later. I don't remember exactly where. And they say that if it is, then he had degraded quite a bit or
something like that.
Yeah.
Hard to say, but I think it's definitely interesting.
Yeah. My thought here, the word pressure, I guess I would say is an interesting word choice as well. And maybe that's what I was, once you were reading that and it kind of drew into my head, I was wondering if that was your comparison you were talking about, but I thinking not. But I remember listening to our horse frog buddies, and I don't remember, it must have been in Memories of Ice, but Cameron brought up the point of pressure being used, and I can't remember exactly how, but it's always kind of stuck with me since he said that, and it's something that I've watched for. And I remember in Memories of Ice when we find the dead Edur on the side of the river or whatever, they're like, well, it looks like pressure ripped it apart or whatever. And so that's just kind of stuck with me since I heard them talk about that.
Sure. I mean, which makes sense, right? I mean, water, pressure, in order for you to be in a submarine, right? You have to have positive and negative pressure.
Yeah, and I think what they were talking about, the pressure was related to Moonspawn as well, I think. Or maybe it was Animander Rake in Dragnipur. I don't remember. It's just one of those things that's kind of stuck out to me and I've watched for as we've been reading. So it's just kind of another instance of that, I guess.
Sure. I would say that ever since you brought that up, I'm not following as closely, but I'm definitely as interested as you are. So keep bringing them up.
If I catch it, I'll try.
Yeah, I'm definitely side questing it with you, for sure.
Cool.
Yeah. I guess last thing, kind of tie in a little bit together. If you read this not last line, before him we're deep in a tower, like southeast of the Terran Seed Tower. And what is happening right here is that we're in a tower, we're going back to Kuru Khan and his perspective. He's looking at that tile floor, that circular tile floor, and one of those tiles is showing him what is happening in the Terran Seed Tower area. One of the plates on the tower is directly linked to one of the tiles in that tile chamber thing that he brings Bryce.
I don't know if I caught that. I don't remember, I guess. I'm going to guess probably not.
Based on how you're reacting, correct. But in your section, it said that they were obsidian plates on top of the tower. And we've heard obsidian many times before.
It makes me think of the What the hell is I want to call her a bounty hunter, but I know that's not what she is. She's the guide. Starts with an S. I can't remember her name right now.
A guide?
Yeah, she was, because she's like one of the few people allowed to, God, what the hell is her name?
In this book?
Yeah.
Are you talking about Serene?
Yeah. Yeah. She touches the rock, and I don't remember if that was obsidian or not. That seemed to evoke similar imagery to me.
Well, what did we read in the last book regarding obsidian?
I don't remember.
Doesn't Karza have a giant obsidian sword?
I thought it was flint.
Maybe. I could be wrong there. But I feel like somebody told us that there are some Talani masks that use obsidian, and there are some that use flint. But there's still, like, an importance there. So I guess what I'm saying, without really understanding at all why there is a linkage, based on some of the previous things we've learned about with stone, right, is that there is a pretty significant impact, which I can imagine why there is a link between the tiles in the floor of Kuro Khan's tower and the actual Terran Seed Tower plates. It's like he's remotely watching this event happen.
Like TV or something, almost.
Exactly. Yep. So it was a cool little section, and, to your point from your first section, they just added on to, like, the dark and ominous feeling that you're left with. So, yeah. But also, I would imagine that based on the beginning of your next section, that there was a flood or tidal wave of some kind.
A leak, something. Yeah, a leak. I don't know what it is, but...
Well, I'm just saying from the first two sections, it sounds like part of Letheris was flooded.
Well, no, I don't think so. Because, remember, the ground was sinking or whatever, and that's why they need Bug. They're going to try to fix it. He's got his little plan to fix it.
Oh, that's right. Yep. Okay, fair enough.
Could be wrong, but that's making sense in my head a little bit right now.
Fair enough.
Anything else you got? All right. Only 3 of the 5 wings of the Eternal Domicile were completed. Those that were complete were elaborate and led to offices that would house the royal household and maintenance administratives. Towards the center would be guards, armories, and trapdoors that led to private passages that would be underground and circled the entire palace. That was the heart of the Eternal Domicile. However, at this moment, those passages were chest deep in muddy water that rats wandered aimlessly through. Maybe it was for pleasure. Breeze stood 3 steps up from the water with an engineer covered in mud, watching the rats swim. The man said the pumps were useless. They used big hoses, or little ones. It didn't really matter. Once there was enough pull, a rat would get sucked in, or maybe 10, and that plugged things up. Plus, the seep is as steady as ever, even though the plums swear they are above the water table. Breeze said he was sure Sita would be fine with the mage joining the crew. The engineer said that would be great. They need to hold the flow for a time so they could bucket out the water and then catch the rats. They had lost Ormley the other night, and he was their best rat catcher. Probably drowned. He couldn't swim. If the errant was looking away, they might find only his bones. The rats know when they found a catcher. Breeze said the tunnels were essential in keeping the king safe. The engineer said nobody would be using them if they were full of water. Breeze said they weren't worried about assassins coming in. It was about getting guards anywhere quickly. The engineer said he was only making a joke, and maybe he should think about having some fast swimmers for guards. He trailed off and said to get him a mage, and they would take care of the rest. Breeze asked if this was not indicative of the tunnels caving in. The man said no, they would be able to tell. Plus, they had another construction company coming to check it out. Rumor was they figured out how to shore up the buildings. Breeze said he hadn't heard about that. The man said the guilds weren't happy about it since these new dudes were hiring up the unwelcomes and paying them less than the usual rate. That seems to be about the only thing they've got going for them, as the guilds can't shut them down as long as they do that. But if the royal architects decide what Bug's construction is doing works, then their role will go sky high. Breeze turned and questioned the name Bug. The man said he was dirty and needed a bath. And yes, there must be a bug. That's why it's Bug's construction. There was a shout from a man further down. They turned and looked down the tunnel and saw a mass of rats almost as wide as the passage itself. Moving like a raft, it came towards the stairs. There was a curse and another scream as they saw a floating head. The worker said it was Ormley. The man's eyes flickered, and the head rose up along with the mat of rats. He said, "Who else could it be?" As he spat in the water, he asked the men if they liked his trophies. He said it was heavy when it was wet, though. The engineer told Ormley they all thought he was dead. The catcher said he was always thinking. He thought this, maybe this, or that. Did he think those rats scared him? Did he really think he was going to drown? Hold's welcoming pit. He's a catcher, and not any old catcher at that. Every damn rat in the city knows Ormley the catcher. Ormley wanted to know who this other dude was. It was Fined Breeze Benedict. He introduced himself and said Ormley had an impressive collection. Ormley got excited at that, and Breeze said he should get out from under it, and that a nice meal was in order with plenty of wine and the night off from work. Breeze told the engineer he would talk to the Sita about his request for a mage. Breeze left them there and thought it was unlikely the eternal domicile would be ready to see the eighth age. Among the population, there didn't seem to be much excitement for the upcoming celebration. Histories might recount prophecies about the glorious empire that was destined to rise once more in less than a year's time. But the truth was, there is little to believe in that they would see some sort of renaissance, neither economically or militarily. If there was anything, it was a slight unease that hinged on the upcoming treaty gathering with the tribes of the Taist Edur. Risk and opportunity. These things were synonymous to the Letheri. Even at that, war was never pleasant, although thus far it was always satisfactory at the end. So risk led to opportunity, with few thoughts spared for those who were defeated, though now the Edur tribes were united. While at the same time, when the alliances had formed against the Letheri in the past, none had worked against the Letheri's different strategies. Money talked and bought betrayal each time, and the alliances would crumble. Would it be any different this time around? Rees wondered about the complacency of his own people, but he was certain he wasn't misreading the public's views. People were nervous, but the markets were strong, and people still wanted to own things. Possession was everything. However, in the palace, things were a little more fraught. The Sita's divination promised some sort of alteration awaiting their land, and he spoke almost in an amused fashion of ascension, a transformation from king to emperor, although how it would shake out was yet to be seen. Annexing the Taist Edur lands and their rich lands would reinvigorate a frenzy for profit. Breeze made his way out of the second wing down towards the narrow canal, and it was nearly noon, and his time away from the palace was only permitted because the king was getting rowdy with the first concubine, and he'd be busy for a few hours. As he made his way to the grand hall, he could hear plenty of commotion. Breeze asked a nearby soldier what had happened. The man wasn't really sure, but he thought it was some news out of trait. The Edur had slaughtered some Letheri with the darkest sorcery, and the king had called a council in 2 hours' time. Breeze made his way into the inner chambers. Retainers and messengers were running about. He was the chancellor, Tribun Noel, with some followers, and he was in a quiet conversation. He looked to Breeze as he walked by, but did not stop talking. Breeze also saw the queen's consort, Turadal Brizad, behind the chancellor. Breeze had always found him a bit disturbing, and it wasn't because he was the queen's fuckboy. He was a silent presence, often at meetings dealing with sensitive state issues. It was also known that the queen's bed wasn't the only bed he visited. Among his other lovers, it was rumored Chancellor Tribun Noel was one of them. It was a messy bed, so to speak. The door to the first eunuch's office was guarded by two of Nephadis's own Rulith, tall men with not the physique one might expect. They had eyeliner and red lipstick. They had hooked daggers, and if they wore armor at all, it was well hidden. They also didn't wear shoes. They let Breeze past. Nephadis was alone behind his desk, which was full of scrolls and maps, and he told Breeze he had been expecting him. Breeze said this seemed to be the first in order. Nephadis was silent a few moments, then said there are beliefs that there should be an official religion of a nation. but those beliefs were little more than gold hammered thin over old bones. However, no nation was singular or exclusive, nor should it be for its own good. There is a lot of danger in the claim of purity, be it blood or origin. Few may admit it, but leather is a far richer place for devouring minorities, provided the digestion remains incomplete. Nefatus told Breeze he had a certain ignorance of things because the palace isolated people. He wanted to understand the people's real beliefs. Breeze asked if he could be more specific. Nefatus told him the sea, the denizens of the deep, demons and old gods. Breeze said the Edur called the dark waters the realm of Ghislaine, which is said to belong to the kin, for whom darkness is home. While the Tarthanol view the sea as one beast with many limbs, including those that reach inland as rivers or streams. The Narek fear it as their netherworld, where drowning is eternal, a fate for betrayers and murderers. Nefatus asked about the Letheri. Breeze shrugged and said Kuru Kwan knows more of that than he did. Sailors fear, but they do not worship. They make sacrifices in hopes of going unnoticed on the seas. The arrogant suffer while the meek survive. But if things go on too long, the hunger under the surface became irritated and spiteful. Tides and currents reveal patterns one must follow, which in part explains the superstitions of those who would travel by the sea. Nefatus asked if this hunger held a place among the holds. Breeze did not think so. Nefatus asked if he thought that was odd. Leather was born from colonists who came here from the First Empire. That First Empire was then destroyed, that paradise razed to a lifeless desert. But it was the First Empire that discovered the holds, even though the empty hold was a later manifestation, at least in how it is related to them. So are they to imagine that older beliefs survived and were carried to this new land all those millennia ago? Or does each land and its adjoining seas evoke its own set of beliefs? If that is the case, then the argument supporting the presence of physical and undeniable gods is pretty good. Breeze countered, saying there was nothing to support that those gods, if they did exist, that they gave a shit about the mortals and their day-to-day lives. Breeze did not think sailors thought of the hunger in the ocean as a god, but more as a demon. Nefatus said it was an answer to the unanswerable, a need for which they all suffer. He sighed and told Breeze that all the seal hunters had been killed. 3 of the ships survived the journey to Trait, taken right up to the piers by Edur wraiths and seemingly carried by the seas that were more than seas, a demon such as the sailors swear upon. At the same time, the Sita believes it was something more and asked if he was familiar with the Foraid beliefs. They have an oral tradition, and if their listing of generations is accurate, then it is an ancient tradition. Their creation myths focused on elder gods, each named and aspected, a diverse pantheon of unwholesome personalities. Among them is the elder lord of the seas, the dweller below, male. And in their oldest tales, male walks the land as in physical manifestation, following the death of an age. Breeze asked what kind of an age. Nefatus thought it was a time before the Fared, but there are contradictions and obscurities. Breeze asked if Kuru Kwan believed that the demon carrying these ships was male. Nefatus said if it was, male had degraded a lot, a mindless maelstrom of untethered emotion, but still powerful. Breeze wondered if the Edur had chained male. Nefatus said, if you cleared a path through the forest, every beast would use it. Is that really control? Maybe of a kind. Breeze thought that Hen and Masag wanted to make a statement. Nefatus agreed, but was it a true statement or just bravado? Breeze didn't know. Nefatus continued saying the king thought this was important, so the Sita prepares, and though he deserved the right to be asked rather than commanded. Breeze asked what it was he needed to do. Nefatus said to wake an elder god. Whew! That was
Good
a big
job.
section to summarize.
Yes, it was. Lots of information in there that it's like, okay, got no context to this, but it is what it is, you know?
And I had a decent amount of comments on this too.
Nice.
So we'll start from the top here. I don't remember what the rat catcher from Blood Follows, what his name was, but he probably could have helped out here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we hear about these people called the plums, and I'm assuming that that's just plumbers.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, so like where Ormley shows back up here in his mat of rats, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Who else would it be?" I was really confused, like until I summarized this, so I must not have been paying very close attention on the first read. It makes sense to me now, but at the time I was like, I didn't know what was going on. I don't know how you felt on that.
Yeah. During the first read, I'm like, who the fuck is this? So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I remember
Just that-
questioning that. Yeah.
Taking that moment to slow down, and I don't know, it just made more sense then.
Yeah.
Old's welcoming pit. That's a curse that I like. I just thought it was fun.
What makes you think it's a curse?
Because he's like, what do you think I was going to drown? And then he said, Hood's welcoming pit. He's a catcher, and not any old catcher.
I guess that's fair.
But then that kind of leads into my next thought here. I was just in a mood, apparently. So if Ormley's the catcher, who do you suppose is the pitcher?
Let's just say Malik Rell. He's the pitcher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
no,
Bidethal...
It's too many similar sounding names.
Yeah. Bidethal's still alive at this point. He could be the pitcher.
I don't think I like that.
Is Ormley too old for him?
I don't know. Yes, he is.
Okay.
I had to think about that for a second.
Sorry, man. Sorry. Just,
You're good.
he was an asshole.
He was.
I've seen him show up on a couple of, like, worst people in books list. So.
Oh, I think he's deserving of being towards the top, I would think.
Yeah, it was just like a ranking of, like, the worst people in, like, a book series. And he was definitely on him.
On the list, sure. We get mention of the upcoming 8th age, right?
Yeah.
And so it made me curious what kind of time frame constitutes an age.
Don't they say that later on in the chapter, or in the section? The end of an age is when blah 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 happens.
Yeah, but like what kind of like time frame is that?
I don't
like
know.
that was kind of my question. Like how many years, that type of thing.
I guess
just because we know there is such a big time scale in this series, I'm curious, like, well, how long was the 7th age?
True. I don't know. I guess I just kind of think of it like the Wheel of Time.
Depends on factors, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure that, like, maybe... I mean, I feel like this is kind of the first introduction of, like, the whole age thing as far as this book goes, so, yeah.
Sure. Next out here, they're talking about or thinking about prophecies about the glorious empire that was destined to rise once more in a not far off amount of time. But they didn't have much to believe in that they would see some sort of renaissance, whether it be economically or militarily. And I thought, well, that must bode well for the Edur, then maybe their alliance can hold. Maybe they won't get bribed. I wonder if we'll see them attempting to bribe them, but maybe they're not going to go for it.
Well, I think it's interesting that it says histories might recount prophecies about the glorious empire that was destined to rise once more in less than a year's time. Well, I mean, I guess I don't know how this particularly fits into the timeline, but I'm wondering if this is before the rise of the Malazan Empire. If that's potentially what that's referring to.
Maybe. I did not think about that. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Again, I was just, I don't know, I guess in a mood, but we get mention of the Queen's consort, and his name is Turadal Brizad, and it just made me think of Turd Ferguson from Saturday Night Live Celebrity Jeopardy. I don't know why, but
yeah,
just a dumb thought.
I don't know if I've seen that show, so.
Oh, well, then that's not going to be funny then.
Sorry, that's the reaction. Yeah,
or lack of one.
Yeah.
But then we find out that Turadal, he's not only seeing the Queen, and it's rumored that he's messing around with the Chancellor, so maybe the Queen, she wants a little Eiffel Tower action or something. I don't know.
Devil's three-way. Just remember, no eye contact.
Yeah. And then we get the description of Nephadis's guards, these Rulith. They got eyeliner and red lipstick. Yeah, I'm just imagining these like emo dudes. Kind of like some Marilyn Manson type dudes or something.
Do emo dudes wear red lipstick? I always thought it was black lipstick.
Well, I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
They can wear whatever they want.
Yes.
And then, they don't wear shoes. And I guess I'm not sure where I was going with this thought, but at the time, it said they don't wear shoes. And I'm like, well, these guys would fuck somebody up in a mosh pit then.
I don't know. Those floors are really gross.
You're
I would
gonna
not
be slipping on beer and stuff, spilled beer,
right, blood,
whatever else,
sweat,
spit.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This, and then we get this quote about leather being a richer place for devouring minorities, provided that their digestion remains incomplete. And I thought that is a pretty interesting way to put that. And I guess I'm taking it that Erickson is saying that diversity and minorities enrich things. They just shouldn't be absorbed and forced to give up all of their old ways. Is kind of what I took from that.
I would say so. I would agree.
Cool. I really liked this little passage where they're talking about like the different races and their beliefs related to the sea. The Edur called the Dark Waters the realm of Ghislaine, which is said to belong to kin for whom darkness is home. And I'm assuming that's the Andy? Heist Andy?
Yes, I would imagine, yes.
But I liked all that. I didn't know if you had any deeper thoughts, deeper like the ocean. But...
Ooh, you got me there. No, I think that that just aligns with my canon around Corralled Ghislaine.
Gotcha. All right, cool. And then we've got this talk of the first empire and this paradise that was raised to a lifeless desert. I can only assume this is talking about the Imus and Raraku, right? I mean, does that make sense to you?
I mean, that's what I thought as well. I mean, that was my immediate thought. And as we saw, right, Raraku used to be a vast ocean. And at the end of House of Chains, that happened, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I would think, like beachfront property, paradise.
Right.
They're not bad anyways.
I would agree. Maybe there's something related there.
Very well could be. Let's see. What else do I got here? Just got one more. So I might need some help with this one, Justin. It's talking about mail, right? And I believe this was, the Farade, their beliefs. And I thought it was cool that it doesn't sound like they write anything down. It's just all, like oral history, right? They got songs they sing or something. I don't know what it is. But their creation myths focus on elder gods. They're each named, aspected, and you've got a wide range of characters. And one of them is Mael, the Elder Lord of the Seas. And in their oldest stories, Mael walks the land in physical form, manifestation following the death of an age. And I thought that was really interesting. I was wondering if you felt that is similar to what we saw. I can't remember the god that Pembroke's god when he was pulled down.
Fenner?
Yeah, Fenner. Thank you. Do you think that was the death of an age in that instance, or not necessarily?
I guess, how are you relating the land, Mael walks the land as a physical manifestation following the death of an age? You think that he's just walking in a physical manifestation because Fenner was pulled down? And that is maybe...
I wonder if Mael was similarly pulled down like what we saw with Fenner. Not that the two are necessarily connected, just that they have similar circumstances.
No, I think I think Mael, being that the oceans are so vast and deep, is probably hiding. I don't know if he's necessarily, but I mean, if he's hiding, then maybe he's scared of something. You know, I mean, elder gods, as we have come to find out through our journey so far, one, don't really get talked about a ton, and two, seem to be a dying breed. Maybe? I don't know. It's an interesting question. I'm going to go with, we just need to read on and find out.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't really sure what to think. It just seemed like maybe there was kind of some similarities there, that's all.
I will say, based upon your earlier comments about an age, what technically constitutes an age, do you think that this is insinuating that if the 8th or the 7th age, they said 8th age, right, is upon us, then...
The 8th would be coming, so the 7th is ending. Well, we got the 7th closure, so is the closure of the 7th age then?
Maybe. So does that mean that Mael will walk in his physical form after the 7th closure?
Maybe.
So, maybe.
That's all I've got here on that pretty beefy section. Anything else you want to add to it?
No, not at all.
All
But,
right.
yeah, I'm ready to move on if you are.
Just keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on. All right. There was great flow to the composite, but Kuer Khan didn't think that this was relevant. He told Bryce that this was a journey of the mind. There are risks, though, and that it may be his mind travels to the netherworld. If it is slain, there would be no return. But there is an extreme need, and the king wills Bryce to proceed. Bryce said that he didn't think there would be danger, and asked if his martial skills might apply. Lucida said that he was unsure, but Bryce was quick-witted and resilient. Kuru turned around to scan the cluttered work table behind him and said that the composite had great flux, and that left him one choice. He reached out and grabbed a cup from the table and took a cautious sip. Sita said that the flux in the composite was entirely due to curdled milk. He asked Bryce Benedict if he was ready. The king's champion shrugged. Sita said that he was going to have Bryce drink the milk. Bryce said that the curdled milk would not harm him. He took the cup from the Sita and swallowed it all down. Bryce asked how long the potion would take before it took effect. Kuru Khan looked confused and asked what potion. He tells the king's champion to follow him as they use the cadence, or the secondance, for Bryce's journey. Bryce followed the sorcerer and stopped at the doorway to look at the cup. He asked the Sita if there was any purpose to what he had just drank. Kuru said that it was one of his experiments, and given the pallor on Bryce's face, he estimated that it won't be long before it comes back up. They made their way to the palace steps. Kuru led Bryce into the vast chamber, where waited the tiles of the holds. He announces that they will use the tile of the fulcra, more specifically the dolmen. They walked out along the central causeway to the central disc. The massive tiles stretched out on all sides beneath them. Sita said that some things were important, some were not, but they claim a mortal's attention, as it falls on all of us to be mindful and allow wisdom in the many possibilities. We fail when we choose indifference to things that happen eventually. He goes on to explain that the First Empire brought with them the old histories that recounted similar failings. Ports at river mouths were abandoned after 3 centuries due to silting caused by the clearing of forests and poor irrigation methods. Ports that, if you were to visit the ruins, you would find the land was far away from the actual coastline. The land crawls to the sea, as it always has. Even so, what we do as humans can greatly accelerate the process. Sita, like the flux in the composite, asked if all of this was relevant. Only somewhat, but he informs Bryce that what he was about to do is enter a world that is very, very old. Kuru was pointing down at the tile. Bryce followed Sita's finger and saw it was pointing at the tile of the dolmen. Bryce studied the tile. It depicted a single, tilted monolith buried in lifeless clay. The sky behind it was devoid of anything. Kuru adds that seas are born only to die one day, yet the land clings to the memory, and all it has endured is clawed onto its face. He informs Bryce that even in the deepest of the oceans, there are traces from a time it stood above the waves. Bryce said that Nephatus was vague about what exactly he was supposed to do. Was he to wake Mael, the Elder God? He explains that he doesn't even worship the god, nor does anybody else in Letheri. So why would Mael even consider a word he is saying? Kurukan said that he hadn't the slightest idea. He asks if the god has fallen so far that he's simply a mindless beast. Dosita said nothing, and Bryce shifted nervously. He asked if it was only his mind that was going. How would he appear? As himself? Or something different? Could he carry weapons? Kuru replied that he's sure that Bryce would manifest himself, some weapons, and assumes that he would appear as himself. He asked Bryce if he's ready to begin. Bryce said that he was. Kurukan reached his arm out, stepped forward, and grabbed Bryce by the harness of his weapons. He gave the King's Champion a surprisingly powerful tug, and he found himself falling over the edge of the disc. Shouting in alarm, he flailed as he fell towards the tile of the dolmen. First thought here is, I loved the setup with the whole curdled milk thing. It was hilarious and very well done. We, as the reader, well, at least for me, fell for it. The section starts off with talking about the flux in this curdled milk, or this liquid, setting it up as some type of concoction that will help Bryce in his journey to wake an Elder God. When Bryce finally drinks it and asks the question, Kurukan was like, no idea what he was talking about. He simply just drank curdled milk. I just thought it was funny and clever. I don't know how you felt about that part, but I thought it was good.
Yeah, I didn't really understand what was going on. I'm like, why did he just drink this? So
because Bryce thought it was like a potion. And Lucita's like, no, it was one of my experiments. But you'll be throwing it up later, pretty much, So, I don't know. I just thought it was funny.
I don't think he did throw it up, or at least that we saw. Anyways.
No. I think that, Lucita is purely speculating.
Sure.
Because, it's curdled milk, so it's spoiled. It's spoiled milk. Yeah. This part where, he's talking about we fail when we choose indifference to things that happen eventually, and then goes on to explain that the First Empire brought with them the old histories that recounted similar things. To me, that suggests, like our world, that history is doomed to repeat itself. And I feel like that's very relevant in these trying times.
For sure.
And then this comment about, what we do as humans can greatly accelerate the process makes me think of the meme where the Earth is visiting the doctor, and the doctor says that the Earth's diagnosis was that it had humans. I don't know if you've ever seen that meme.
I've not, no. But it did make me just think of, why can I not think of the term? I'm just drawing a blank right now. Sorry. It'll pop into my head later.
Well, when it pops in, just let me know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you all out there have seen that meme that I'm talking about, but if you really want to, just, Google Earth Doctor meme, or We Have Humans meme, or something like that. You'll see it.
I get what it's saying.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. Yeah, but now I'm getting pissed that I can't remember the word I'm trying to think of. Global warming, I guess.
Maybe.
Yeah.
There's this part where, he's studying the tile, the tile of the dolmen, and he's describing what that tile looks like. Just a single tilted monolith buried in lifeless clay. And then behind it, the sky is devoid of nothing. I mean, I understand what a monolith is, but I wanted to look up the definition. And it is a large, single, upright block of stone, especially one shaped into or serving as a pillar or monument. And here's my question, is what have we seen in this world so far that resembles this? It doesn't specify what it's made out of, but I wonder if this is another hint towards the jade statues.
But that's like a hand.
Buried in lifeless clay. It doesn't say how... I mean, that was a monolith of a hand, wasn't it? I mean, it's supposed to be huge, right?
Yeah, but I think the key word for me in your definition is single. And I guess you could say like, well, it is a single piece of jade just carved. So I can see it both ways.
So I wonder if there's a connection there. Whether there is or not, I'm not gonna like, do anything about it. Right, yeah. But it's interesting. And, I would imagine that these jade statues are pretty old.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would think so too.
So old that they may be the dolmen, right? They may have something to do with these tiles.
Maybe.
And then there's this part where, Sita informs Bryce that even in the deepest of oceans, there are traces from a time in when it stood above the waves. And talking about the deepest part of the ocean, once, where land, I'm guessing, before the sea was born. But I just thought that was an interesting way of saying that at one point in time throughout history, even at the deepest depths, it once stood above. And I think that's where he's kind of saying and suggesting to Bryce that this is where they will find the memories they're looking for. It's like a relative place in time, but it's not very specific either.
Everything changes, man.
Yeah. And then this is kind of a question for us, really. They're talking about if a god has fallen so far that he's simply a mindless beast. Right? And before, as you said, Mael would have had severely degraded if it was him that had caused the commotion at the Terranseed Tower. I don't think it is, but I'm curious as to, this almost seems to be kind of a theory of de-evolution of some kind. You think we could say the same of the opposite?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Sorry, I don't have a whole lot to offer you on that. I'm not sure. What do you think?
I think that, this world is so unpredictable sometimes. So I think that both could be true. I think that one or the other could be true. But I would imagine that, even a mindless beast could evolve into or ascend into something else, right?
Maybe. Right place, right time type situation or something.
Yeah, the path of hands, right? They essentially ascend a soul taken or de-iver. Do you think there's still a mind or a senseless beast, right? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. I'm not sure.
It's really hard to say. The hard part is like we're halfway. We're on the halfway book in this particular part of the series, and there's still so many questions.
And I feel like we're gonna get more questions.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they're not going away.
No.
But yeah, outside of that, that's all I had. So I'm ready to move on if you are, sir.
Yeah, get some good thoughts there. I like it. So
thank you.
We'll move on. Section 5. Tahol said even in the noblest ventures, sometimes there were stumbles. Bug could only stare. Tahol continued saying it was only a small failing, and he was happy. Bugs was a perfectly understandable and even a modest battering of confidence that comes with poorly conceived effort. He could see no fault in the deed itself. And to prove it to Bug, Tahol did a slow turn and said the pant legs were the same length, and that he would be warm no matter how cold the nights got. But it never did really get that cold, so what was a little sweat between the legs? Bug said the colors he had chosen were the worst combo he had ever tried. He feels sick looking at him. Tahol asked what that had to do with the pants, and Bug said, not really much. Tahol said he needed to know his daily doings as he had a midnight date with a dead woman. Bug said he was never surprised with his master's desperation. Tahol asked if their favorite moneylender had killed himself yet, as was expected. Bug said, without any problems even. Tahol continued saying, except that he hung himself. Bug said, sure, but that was also before the fire swept through. Tahol wanted to know how Garen Eberick's reaction was. Bug said he was down in the dumps about it. Tahol wanted to know if he was suspicious. Bug wasn't super sure. His agents had asked some questions, but more for a hidden cache of winnings, an attempt to try and recoup some of their losses. So far, nothing had turned up. Tahol said it better not. They needed Garen to swallow the whole loss. And not that it really was a loss, it just didn't increase his wealth. He told Bug to shut up. He needed to think. He pulled his pants up and said he must be losing weight. He got to the edge of the roof and asked Bug what he was wearing. Bug said it was the latest fashion among masons. Tahol called it the Dusty Few. It was a wide leather belt with loops and pouches. Tahol said he figured those were meant for tools, things a mason might use. Bug said he just runs the company, but he doesn't use those things. Tahol wondered why he needed a belt then. Bug said so he would be taken seriously. Tahol figured that was noted on the expenses. Bug said yes, and the wooden hat as well. Bug imagined this belt must feel similar to what it's like wearing a sword belt, something reassuring about weight on your hips and all. Tahol said it was like he was dueling his materials. Bug asked if he was done thinking. Bug said good and took off the belt, saying it made him walk in circles. Bug climbed down off the roof, and Tahol got into his bed and looked to the stars. A holiday festival was approaching that was dedicated to Errant, the mysterious purveyor of chance, or some other such thing. Tahol was never sure. The holds were invented, so there was always something to blame, or that's what he thought anyways. Avoiding responsibility was what the human species was all about. There would be a pointless celebration of something, or perhaps nothing, and it would involve everything. Crazy wagers at special drownings where the most notorious criminals would try and swim like swans. People who liked to be seen would make a point to be seen, and household guards stuck at home would sleep at their post. There was a sound to the right of Tahol. Tahol told Shirk she was early. She was 2 hours early, in fact. Shirk only said, "Oh." Shirk said they could go early to Salush. Tahol said they could, but he would rather not surprise her. She said she needed a lot of supplies after all. Shirk asked what made her worse than other corpses. Tahol said dead ones didn't fight back. Shirk said why should she fight back? The woman was simply making her pretty. Tahol said he was just making conversation and asked how she was doing. She said she was the same. Tahol asked what she meant. Shirk said she had been better, but some would consider consistency a virtue, and his pants fucking ruled. Tahol agreed and said not everyone had his taste. Shirk interrupted him and said she had no taste. Tahol wasn't sure if that's because she was dead or just a generic self-admission. Shirk said she was thinking about Errant's festival coming up. Tahol smiled and said he liked where this was going. She continued saying there were always 16 guards on duty, with another 8 either sleeping or gambling in the barracks. The barracks are attached to the estate via a covered walkway that is 19 strides in length, with all outer gates double barred. 4 guards and cubbies on each corner of the roof, and the estate's walls are twice the height of a man. Tahol said it sounded formidable. Shirk only shrugged. Bug showed back up, climbing the ladder with one hand, while the other had a platter with 2 beverages and offered Shirk some tea. She told him not to be absurd, and he apologized. Tahol smelled the tea and wasn't thrilled. Bug said they didn't have any herbs, so he had to improvise. Tahol asked if he used the sheep's hide, and Bug said he was pretty close. He had some leftover wool he used. Tahol asked if it was yellow or gray. Bug said yellow. Tahol said it was smooth and asked if they were poisoning themselves. Bug said just a little. Shirk said there are times she regrets being dead. This was not one of them. She continued saying this is when she would normally clear her throat to cover the awkwardness, but she is not able to feel any more awkward than she already does. Tahol said Salush had made a pump up and soon would smell like roses, even though the operation wouldn't be delicate. Shirk asked if she would be filled with dried flowers. Tahol didn't think she would be stuffed everywhere. Shirk said it was a matter of practicality. How could she be stealthy if she creaked with every step she took? He said that's a fair question, and to just ask Salush. Shirk said that sounded like everything else and wanted to know if he wanted her to keep talking about Garen's estate. Tahol asked her to continue. She said he would be attending the special drownings, and once it's finished, he would be a guest at an event hosted by the Queen's consort. Shirk said yes, she had robbed him once. Tahol asked what she had took, and she said his virginity, back when he was young and before he danced in the palace, gaining the Queen's attention. Tahol said that was interesting and asked if she was his true love. She said Turadal's only love was for himself, and she was older than him. Now, however, he was older than her, but back then there were plenty of men and women after him. She figured he thought that the conquest was his, and maybe he still feels that way. But the measure of the perfect theft is that the victim is unaware of what was lost. Bug said he didn't think through it all. Brizad regretted his actions. Shirk said, nonetheless, there was nothing in this world that couldn't be stolen. Tahol said they should take a walk and head to Salush's, and thanked Bug for the unique tea and told him to clean up. As usual, Bug said he would, if he had time. Shirk asked if she should climb down into the shadows as to be unseen. Tahol said if she must, otherwise she could just put her hood up. She said she would not be seen exiting a house she was not seen entering. Tahol was surprised and asked if there were spies watching him. She said she doubted it, but never hurt to be cautious. He made his way downstairs and outside, and Shirk came out of the shadows, and she asked Tahol to tell her more about Salush. Tahol said she was a past associate of Bug's, and Balmers and dealers in the dead seemed to be a kind of extended family, always exchanging techniques and body parts. It's really an art form, and from what Tahol understands, the details of the body could be used to read what happened like a scroll. Shirk asked what value there was in compiling a list of flaws on someone already dead. Tahol said morbid curiosity or curious morbidity. She asked if he was trying to be funny. Tahol said he never took her warnings seriously. Shirk told Tahol that he was very dangerous to her, but she was drawn to him as if he was an intellectual white nectar. She hoped she wasn't disappointed by the tension that was built up. She feared being let down. Tahol said he empathized with her. The risk of achieving what she wished was a sore consequence to success. Then he asked her to tell him about the old tower behind the palace. She said there wasn't much to tell other than his undead friend resides somewhere in the area, the dead girl, and her name was Kettle. Tahol asked if she was important to her. Shirk said that was hard to answer. She may mean something to all of them. He asked if he could help somehow in this situation. Shirk said she wanted to find out her story. The old tower appears to be haunted, and that haunting is communicating somehow with Kettle, and it desperately needs human flesh, and this is why Garen Ebrick is losing spies. Kettle kills them. Another pretty big section there.
Did a good job.
Thanks, man. I don't think I had too many thoughts on this one, though. I mean, it's just kind of straightforward. They're getting ready to go see
Salush.
Yeah, they're going to the salon, basically, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, different kind of salon for sure.
Yeah, but I like how this section starts off. Like you get Tahol talking about how this is just such a failure and stuff, and you're like, what is he talking about? And then it's just like he's just talking about these pants.
Yeah, like the curdled milk thing, right? Like there's supposed to be some importance that you're taking out of it, but it's just them talking. Yeah, it's nothing.
But it was a fun section to read. Probably one of my more favorite ones in this chapter. I guess I'm not sure which one I would say was my most favorite, but this one would probably be up there.
Yeah, I feel like they're more or less the same in this particular chapter for me. They all kind of have like the same type of favoritism, maybe. I don't know how else to say that, but yeah.
Sure. Couple thoughts here, though. Yeah, we got Bug talking about his tool belt, and then he has this wooden hat. And I just cannot picture what this wooden hat looks like. I don't know if you have a visual for it, but I do not.
I don't necessarily have a visual for a wooden hat. No.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like it was such an odd thing, and that's why it stuck out, I guess. But yeah, I didn't know what to think. But then they talk about this holiday festival that's coming up, dedicated to Errant, who's the mysterious purveyor of chance or whatever such thing. Tahol wasn't sure, right? And I'm like, Errant kind of reminds me of Open a little bit.
Yeah, and they're both unaligned cards too.
Oh.
I mean, one is an unaligned tile and the other is an unaligned card, but
still just unaligned. So maybe do you think Errant is like the precursor to Open or something?
Maybe. I mean, Errant is an actual definition, isn't it?
I guess that I do not know.
I mean, from what I understand, Errant is It's an actual word.
We're going to look it up.
Yeah. Erring or straying from the proper course or standards. Or the archaic way is traveling in search of adventure.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
So, I mean, it's very possible that maybe one of the twins is the errant. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I would be curious if we get any sort of resolution on that. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But interesting thought nonetheless.
Yeah, for sure.
Moving on a little further down here, I think this is my last thought on this section, but Shirk, she said, there's nothing in this world that couldn't be stolen. And I think that's a pretty bold claim, and I wonder if we will see that put to the test.
Well, I think she's just talking about his virginity, right? Because doesn't she talk about taking his
she does talk
virginity?
about that.
Yeah.
But then she says, nonetheless, there's nothing that can't be stolen. So
she's just maybe that good of a thief.
Yeah. But I wonder if we'll get to see her try to steal something and then it doesn't go according to plan. And she's like, shit.
Maybe. I mean, it's always possible, right?
There's always a chance.
You're telling me there's a chance.
So you're telling me there's a chance. Yeah, that's all I've got. A couple thoughts on a pretty long section, but again, just pretty straightforward. Fun section to read. Had a couple chuckles in it for sure.
Yeah, not a terribly ton to take out or look deeply into. It's merely a transition from where they are to where they're going.
I would agree.
I feel like this next section, though, has quite a bit of them.
Well, let's jump into it. Go for it, man.
Currents swept across the face of the steeply sloped wall of a black rock that reached up into the sky. Vast flats stretched out from the base of the trench wall, and these were scoured down to the bedrock. Huge tangled islands of debris crawled along the surface. Bryce stood on the plain and watched the nearest tumbling mass roll by. He knew that he was witnessing a sight that no mortal has seen, where eyes would see only darkness, where the pressures would have crushed the body descending from the surface far above. There he stood, his senses real, as physical as he had been in the palace, clothed and armored, his sword hanging at his hip. He could feel the icy water in its wild torrent, in a vague, remote sense, but those currents would not challenge his balance, nor could the cold steal the strength from his limbs. He drew breath, and the air was cool and damp, as it had been in the subterranean chamber of the Secondants. That recognition steadied him. He thought to himself that a god dwells in this place. It seemed to fit, as it seemed to be a world of fraught extremes, primal, a realm of raw violence, and immense clashing of nature. He watched another mass tumble by, and mixed inside was rope. Flattened pieces of metal whose edges extruded white tendrils. He thought to himself that metal was armor, and those tendrils were. As the mass tumbled away, and as it did, he saw something beyond it, vertical shapes rearing from the plain. He walked towards them, thinking that they were dolmens. He then saw that the towers were the same rocks as the plains, as they were a part of it, lifting as solid projections. As he came closer, he saw that the surfaces were carved in glyphs, 6 in all, forming a row that cut diagonally from the trench wall. He stopped at the closest one. The glyphs themselves were silver, contrasting against the black stone, and then in the uneven surface between the symbols he saw hints of a figure. He took note of the creature's features and noted that the glyphs surrounded it, and surmised that it must be a prison of some sort. He circled the dolmen and found more glyphs and more nightmarish-looking beasts. He moved on to the next one and found more. As he made his way, he came upon the 4th dolmen, and this one was different somehow. On one side of the stone, the silver of the glyphs was faded, and where a figure should have been was nothing but an indentation, suggesting that something was loose. This sent a chill to Bryce, and thought that whatever was loose wasn't a god. He spoke to Mael in his mind and asked where the elder god was, then asked if these were his servants, or his trophies. The absence here was unreal, than which rose before him. Something whispered of abandonment, and that Mael was gone. He heard a voice ask if Bryce had come for another one. He turned around, and 10 paces away stood a hulking figure, armored and head covered with a helm with full cheek guards. Barnacles clung to joints of arms and legs. He had a two-handed sword as wide as Bry's two hands together were long. From the figure's hands, he saw blood dripping down. He drew his own Letheri sword. The currents that didn't bother him before suddenly tugged at him, as to whatever had kept them at bay had suddenly vanished. The blade was turned and twisted with every surge of water. To counter the weapon of the figure, he would need to be agile and speedy. The Letheri steel would not break his longsword if he parried, but it might break his arms. Now the currents buffeted him, and there was no way he could fight this creature. The words the creature had spoken were unfamiliar to him, but yet while in this realm he understood it. He said that he hadn't come for another one, and he was not here to free those demons from their sorcerous prisons. The creature said that there were no demons here, only fallen gods. He asked Bryce if he thought the wards were prisons. Bryce responded and said he didn't know what to think, as he didn't know what the words written meant. The creature said that the remembrance is power, and that power recalling a feeling. A god dies when it becomes nameless. Thus did Mael offer his gift, the sanctuary. Without their names they vanish. The crime committed here is beyond measure. The obliteration of the names, the binding of a new name, the making of a slave. He explains that he was made to guard those that remain. Some fighters had delivered unseen wounds before weapons were drawn. Bryce had faced fighters like this before and always dealt with them with amusement. The maelstrom of the current ceased. Speed and agility returned to him. The fighter took a big step forward and swung his sword. Bryce managed to evade and get his steel sword between some armor. Behind them, a dolmen exploded. The warrior swung his sword down, and Bryce was able to throw himself backward. The warrior's sword was now stuck in the ground. Bryce attempted to shove the warrior, but the creature was able to hold his ground. He turned around and met his elbow with the creature's face. Pain exploded in his arm, and as he fell away, he retrieved his sword from the armor. The creature tried to pry the sword free, but it would not budge. Bryce leapt forward again, kicking the closest leg and breaking the bones above the ankle. The warrior sank down, bracing himself on the sword stuck in the ground. Bryce said enough, and he didn't desire to kill more gods. The armored face lifted, and it told Bryce that it was defeated, and they had failed. Bryce asked if the blood on the creature's hands belonged to the surviving gods. The creature said that they were diminished now. Bryce wondered if the gods could heal him. The creature said that they couldn't, as there was nothing left. Bryce asked what happens when the blood runs out. The creature said that it was power, and it steals courage. Against you it failed. It was expected that the blood of slain enemies would. He stopped and said that it didn't matter now. Bryce asked if Mael could help out. The warrior said that Mael hasn't visited here in thousands of years. Bryce frowned and thought about what Kuru Khan had said about following his instincts, and he did not like what was taking place here. He told the warrior that he would help, and he would offer up his own blood. The warrior, after a long pause, said that Bryce didn't know what he offered. Bryce added that he didn't mean to die, but asked if it would suffice. The warrior explained the blood from someone living was small compared to an enemy, or one that is dying, and reiterated that he doesn't know what he offers. Bryce asked if he could approach. The creature replied with, "We are helpless before you." He tells the guardian that he has more in mind, and explains that he will give him his sword, as he has been told that it won't break. He offered the sword to the guardian. He grabbed Bry's sword and exclaimed that it weighed as if nothing. Benedict explained that it was forged by some secret method by his people, and it shall not fail the guardian. The warrior asked if this was how Bryce treated all his foes in this manner. Bryce said no, and that it only applied to those he did not wish to fight in the first place. After some small talk about being a swordsman, Bryce cuts his palm and sets it down on the hand, still holding the sword lodged in the ground. He could feel the blood being absorbed. The guardian started to straighten, and Bryce saw that his wounds were mending. He suddenly felt weak. The warrior commanded for him to release his hand, or he would die. Bryce pulled away, and the warrior asked if he would live. Bryce said he hoped so, and then asked the guardian for all the names before he left. He tells the guardian that he has a good memory, and there will be no enslavement for as long as he lives. and beyond his life, he will make sure that each name is not forgotten. The Guardian said that they were ancient gods, and what Bryce risks? Bryce interjects to say that the warrior had earned his peace. Against the Edur, those who came before to chain one of his kin, they will be ready next time. He hopes that his life can be added to the warrior's strength, and hopefully enough to resist. The warrior straightened to his full height, and said that Bryce's sacrifice shall not be forgotten. Bryce asks for the names once again, and he feels that he's fading. Words filled his mind, names seared into his head. He screamed at the avalanche of names and the countless layers of grief, dreams, lives and deaths, of realms unimaginable, the civilizations crumbling to ruins. So many stories.
I don't know. I kind of didn't remember that section, but I think that was a good section.
It is a good section. It is a very good section.
So what you got?
What I got. All right. So these like tumbleweeds, apparently they're like a mixture, or at one that he's particularly looking at, there were like flattened pieces of metal where the edges extruded like white tendrils. And he thought to himself that that metal was armor and those tendrils were. I'm not sure what he's seeing with the tendril stuff, and I don't feel like I missed anything, but the lack of anything complete thought makes me feel otherwise. Like he doesn't.
I couldn't get it either.
Do you think this is something to do with the Otatero dragon?
No. Stop making fun of me.
Sorry. I couldn't help myself. I had to. Okay.
You could have put that anywhere else, but you chose right there.
I'm not going to go there. All right, fair enough. Okay. So, I just thought that was strange, you know? You got this tumbleweed with ropes and then metal in it, and then white tendrils coming off of it. So I don't know if that's supposed to suggest some type of, like, sea life or what, but...
Yeah, I had no idea.
I get the sense that he's underneath the sea many years, like thousands of years ago, you know? Contrasting against the black stone and in the uneven surface beneath the symbols, he saw hints of a figure. And remember in the second chapter where we see Seren at the black stone that was shaped like two boats? We saw something moving inside. So I don't know if like maybe there's a connection there, because...
Maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure. But I can see the similarities.
And then in one of these dolmens, he notices a creature with one eye. And I'm like, must be a cyclops of some kind. So it's kind of cool to get, you know, all of the cyclopses you've seen throughout your life. And, like, that's just kind of what immediately comes to mind. Mine's always Mighty Max. I don't know if you ever remember that show.
No, I don't think so. Doesn't sound familiar.
Cool. All right.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. It's on YouTube. Okay, and now the currents buffeted him. You know, and we see this a few times, and I get the sense that it's like some kind of mental thing. But it was hard because my mind kept wanting to go back to like a physical limitation. But, you know, and even later on, like a little bit before the fight, you know, whatever was holding these currents at bay started assailing him. So not sure what that means, but
I don't think I can help you out.
it's just weird shit, man. Bryce thought that the words on the dolmens were prisons, and I'm assuming that what he's referring to is actually the silver glyphs that he's observing in the black stone. If they're like some type of like incantation or what.
Interesting. Okay.
And then, you know, following up on that, you know, the creature said that Mael offered this gift, this sanctuary, right? And so, like, I think I understand it. You know, he essentially keeps the elder gods alive even after they should be dead because they're nameless, right? My question is this where Cruel was housed before blood was spilled on his altar in Gardens of the Moon? Also, it makes sense why Mael isn't forgotten, because he's the god of the sea, the sailors and their stories, keep him from being nameless.
That's a good point.
Couple of thoughts there, sorry.
No, you're good. I felt like I was having thoughts. I was wondering if they were. God, I just feel like I sucked sucked today. What was like the prison thing called?
The Zath?
Yes. Do you think I was wondering if this was like an Azath house?
I mean, maybe. I'm getting that he's in
Because I
the
know
realm.
like Dead House. I got kind of remember having imagery of like like a hedge maze type thing, and there's dudes just stuck to the walls and stuff. And obviously, this is not that, but
I don't think... Let me just whip out my third copy of Midnight Tides. I don't know where my other one is, and I have one at work and I have one at here, and I don't know where I usually read the one here is, so I grabbed my other copy. I don't think that the Azath and the Dolmen are related. I think they're separate houses.
okay.
Yeah, the Azath hold is not... Dolmen is not part of the Azath hold. Dolmen is a Fulcra.
All right.
It's interesting, right? Because, like, is it possible that what we're reading here is why Cruel was able to get free?
Maybe.
It's interesting. And then we've got this next part, the obliteration of the names, the binding of a new name, the making of a slave. And he's talking about the crime, or referring to Bryce being back for another one, right? Which explains that indentation on the black rock, and the lack of silver glyphs covering where the god should have been. Obviously, he doesn't know what the creature is talking about, Bryce that is, but it sounds like someone came into this realm and freed a god and made it his or her slave. So, I think, and it seems like it was definitely Taistidur, so I'm going to go with Hanan Mosag, and this is what he has been brought up from the depths. Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I could get on board with that.
Some type of elder god that maybe the Taist Andi used to worship.
I think that's interesting. But I'm following with you, and I think it makes sense.
And then, again, the creature was like power, it steals courage. And I wonder if this is what all that wave stuff that he was feeling was about. Was him trying to steal Bryce's courage. And still, Bryce, managed to fight through it.
I didn't think about anything like that as I was reading.
And then, the creature, after he's defeated, and Bryce asked if he could approach him, he says, "We are helpless before you." And I find it interesting that he says, "we," which makes me think that this guardian is more than what he seems. Not sure where I can go with that, but I guess those are just kind of my initial thoughts. I don't know if he's per se an actual elder god, because he seems to be in service of them. So, that doesn't give me, lateral position. That gives me, someone below them.
Sure.
But he does need blood in order to restore strength, so maybe he is an elder god. Just one that is maybe, was more recently forgotten.
Again, I think that's something I could get on board with.
So, the existence of elder gods in the other 4 books, they're just there, right? We don't have any of their backstory. And now this is kind of starting to reveal that a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
And beyond his life, he will make sure that each name is not forgotten. And so this maybe, to me, is why some of the elder gods haven't been forgotten or eventually come back as we read the series, right? I think Bryce has made it his mission to let those names not forget, which is how I feel they'll come back into the fold. So I have a feeling that we're going to start seeing more elder gods because Bryce has promised to not forget them.
Okay, sure.
Because remember, all this is taking place before Gardens of the Moon.
Yeah.
So
I wonder who we might see pop up.
I don't know. I want to know who this guy is, who this creature is. So
yeah, there's mystery there for sure.
Yeah. And then last thing, against the Edur, those who came before to chain one of his kin. My guess is, like I said, Hanan Mosag maybe was guided by the crippled god per his instructions to enslave this elder god. And that's who I'm guessing came before. That's my guess.
I don't know that I really have an opinion on that right now. So I'll just be along for the ride and we'll see if you're right or not.
So you're just waiting for more information?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah. I'm not really swayed one way or the other yet.
All right. That makes sense, you know? I mean, maybe it's dumb for me to not have more information, but I feel like based on the way that Troll and some of the Sengars have reacted to Hanan Mosag's new abilities and their speculations kind of like affirms this for me. It's okay. I'm fine with being wrong. You know this.
That's half the fun sometimes.
Right, exactly.
All right. Well, I got a shorty of a section here. Errant, save us. What have you done? Breeze was laying on his back on a hard floor. He opened his eyes and saw Kuru Kwan looking down at him. Breeze said he could not find mail. He felt weak and could hardly touch his face. Kuru Kwan said he hardly had a drop of blood left in him. What happened? He said he discovered what the Teist Edur had done. Ancient gods stripped of their names, bound by a new one to serve the Edur. Kuru Kwan's eyes narrowed and asked if the names could be found. Would it serve to pry it from Hanan Mosag's hands? Breeze closed his eyes. All of the names held within him. Had any of the other gods known its kin's identity? Breeze said he might have it, but it would take some time. Kuru said he returned with secrets. Breeze said, and only a handful of answers. The Sita said he needed time to recover, food and wine, plenty of both. Could he stand? Breeze said he would try. I only had one thought here, and I guess it was kind of answered in the following sentence, but I guess at the time when I was summarizing this, I'm not sure I was understanding what it was that the Edur had done. But like I said, it's just kind of, I feel like it's in that next sentence. They stripped them of their names, bound by a new one to serve the Edur. So they're just, I don't know, it makes me think if you can do that to a god, you must be fairly strong, right? Or the god is weak, close to being forgotten.
Right. Why would you do that though?
Power, I guess, is the only thing that makes sense to me. Unless you got something else to throw out there. No? Okay. Then power it is.
Power it is.
Getting the Megazord up.
Yeah. For sure, the Megazord.
All right. Yeah, just a short little section there. It was, I didn't, that last section, I wasn't thinking that Breeze had lost so much blood, but he lost quite a bit. So that was kind of surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Which, confirms Sita's word of caution, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm ready to move on if you are.
Yeah, take it away, dude.
Bug walked through the darkness of Sherp's Lane, named after the man who had died 20 years ago. He had been a fixture to this particular neighborhood. He was old and half-blind, always muttering about a cracked altar, long lost underneath the city streets, more particularly underneath this very lane. His body had been found within a scratched-up circle on the floor and strung-up rats. Bug missed Sherp, but what was done was done. He had been awakened by a dirt-covered child urging him to follow her. She was now a few paces ahead, leading the way. They turned left at the end of Sherp's Lane, and he was guided towards a sinkhole called the Errant's Heel. That was being used as a pit to shit in. Opposite side of that was a house that she led him to. Once he was inside, in one of the rooms, he saw 6 Nurek children and a grandmother, who had wandered down from the north to attend to the children after their parents had died from truce fever. Not so big of a deal, as truce fever could easily be cured by a Letheri healer, given the right amount of coin. Bug did not know the family personally, but knew of them. They must have heard of the services he provided at no charge. A tiny hand led him to a small room, a crowded room that smelled like death. He was greeted as he ducked into the room. His eyes finally found the motionless body laying on a blanket in the middle of the room. Bug made eye contact with the eldest child and asked where she had found her. The girl explained that she had made it home, and she had walked from buried round. Bug asked if she spoke before life left her. The child said yes, to share with them her killer. He thought to himself to make sure that the kids knew that she hadn't abandoned them. He asked who killed her then. The eldest child explained the story of how the now deceased woman was crossing the round when she ran into an entourage of 7 men and their master. This fella had been complaining about how all his spies had gone missing. Their grandmother had begged for coin, and their master got angry and ordered his men to kill her. Bug asked if she knew the identity of this master. The child gave him an answer. Bug knelt down by the woman and placed a hand on her cold forehead. He spoke a few lines of kind words before stating that he would prepare this woman for an erect funeral. The child asked if they could get his blessing. Bug's eyebrows lifted in surprise. The girl continued on to say that they must have Bug's blessing. Bug hesitated and then agreed. He then asked where they would go. Where would they live? As if in answer, there was a commotion at the door, and a huge figure lumbered into the small room. Bug asked who this was. The girl responded that this was their cousin, and that his name was Un, and he worked down at the harbor. The girl introduces Un to Bug. Un asked who had done this, who had killed their grandmother. Bug thought to himself that Garoon Ebrecht was in for it now, and something tells him that Garoon will come to regret it. What a fucking dick. I actually had quite a bit of comments for this really smaller section. This part where, again, these are these are the cheese and the mousetraps for me. But this cracked altar, long lost underneath the city streets. What do you think this is, sir? Do you think there's some truth in this, or do you think it's just kind of like a neighborhood rumor?
I didn't put any thought into it, to be perfectly honest with you, so I'm not sure. It wasn't really something I picked up on.
Is this referring to like the empty hold of some kind, or cracked altar? I get the feeling of some type of fragmentation, which makes me think of Edur, so like it's just, I guess I can agree with you, and like there maybe doesn't need to be any thought to it, but it just catches my attention.
Well, that's totally fair.
And then this whole part about Sherp himself had been found within like a scratched up circle on the floor and then strung up rats, I imagine, kind of like around him. And it's more or less sounds like a ritual of some kind to me, or sacrifice, or
something along those lines. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Maybe some type of like divination, maybe. That's where I'm kind of like, interesting. Another thought. Here, this whole like truce fever and, cured by a Letheri healer given the right amount of coin kind of seems familiar. We're pretty familiar with that practice, right?
Paying to go to the doctor.
I don't know if you've ever, if you ever really looked at some of your, like an itemized receipt of some of the bills you get from the doctor or the hospital or whatever, and it's just astronomical, some of the things they charge you for,
Yeah. No, I haven't really done that personally, but I haven't had to have, like surgery or anything like that, so.
Next thought. So basically the grandmother, even though she was dying, chose to use the last amount of her strength to, one, tell her family who her killer was, and two, to make sure that her grandchildren didn't know or didn't think that she had abandoned them. And I don't know why, like, that really hit home for me, but, like, this section was really sad.
I think it takes some mental fortitude to do that as you're, like, dying, to have, like, the, like, determination to be like, I'm getting back, and my last couple words are going to be, like, this dude killed me, I didn't abandon you, and then you're gone. Yeah, this is sad.
And then immediately when they're retelling the story about how the master had been complaining about all his spies going missing, as soon as I heard that description, I immediately thought Garoon Ebrecht, which I don't think is any surprise there. But it's just funny how, like, quick I recollected that Kettle was killing all his spies, So
you're getting cranky about it.
And then my last thought, this commotion at the door, the huge figure lumbered into the room, and then Bug asked who it was. But what's interesting is when Bug places his hand on the grandmother's lifeless form, he says a few kind words, and then he tells the children that he hears the shifting of vast stones, the grinding surrender of a long-closed portal. There was cold clay, but it didn't embrace her. But when their cousin Un steps into the room, Bug has a thought to himself that the shifting of vast stones was like shoving aside of an entire mountain. What begins here? And I feel like there's a connection between what he's saying over the dead grandmother's body and Un's appearance, but I can't really figure it out. It's just intriguing enough to pay close attention to. So I wonder if Un killing Ebricht will start something, or if this is simply just a smaller detail that doesn't need to go further than that.
Well, I guess we will have to see.
Yeah.
Read and find out.
Bravo. Cool. I mean, I guess those were all my thoughts.
All right. Well, I guess this is the section you've been waiting for.
Yeah. Oodaloo.
Salush of the Stinking House was tall and proportionate, but her hair was her most prominent feature. 27 braids of black hair going every which direction, each wrapped around an antler tine. She was somewhere between 35 and 50 years old, as her products she used helped hide her age. Her eyes violet from the pigment of some worms, and her lips a full red from a mildly toxic snake venom she painted on every morning. She stood before Tahol and Shirk in tight silk, and Tahol had to work hard to not stare at her nipples. There was a long moment before he looked up to see. She was surprised. She was frantic, saying they were early and he should know better. And was this the dead woman? Shirk said if she wasn't, then she was in even bigger trouble. Salush said it was the worst embalming job she had ever seen. Shirk told her she hadn't been embalmed. Salush said that was an outrage and asked how she died. Shirk said she was curious how often her clients actually answer that question. Salush told them to enter, still frazzled. Tahol said it was only a couple hundred heartbeats to midnight. Salush said she still needed to close the door. The streets scared her. Salush inspected her and told Shirk she had drowned in Quillis Canal, just downstream of Winlow's meat grinders, on the last day of a summer month. But which one? Wanderers? Watchers? Shirk said betrayers. Salush said Winlow must have had a good month then. She asked if people still screamed when they saw her. Shirk said sometimes. Shirk asked Salush if she got compliments on her hair, and she said no. Tahol said this was some nice small talk, but they didn't have all night. Salush said actually they did. Tahol said okay, and Shirk was a victim of the drownings and apparently a curse as well. Salush said it was usually that way. Shirk followed that up, mentioning that Tahol had said something about roses. Salush said no roses, cinnamon and patchouli, but first they needed to get rid of all the mold and moss in her nose. Then there is the Utulu. Shirk and Tahol both asked what that was. Salush said it lives in the hot springs of the Blue Rose Mountains, a secret among women. She was surprised she had never heard of it before. Shirk said her education was lacking. Salush explained what it was, a vertical slit for a mouth, skin covered in cilia that took root in membranous flesh. Tahol caught on and asked if she was suggesting what he thought she was. Salush said most men couldn't tell, and it enhances pleasure many times over from what she has heard. And since it's permanent, it needs constant feeding. Shirk asked how often. Salush said daily. Tahol said Shirk's nerves were dead now, so how would she feel what this thing does? Salush said they weren't dead, simply unawakened, and before too long, the Utulu would reinvigorate all her flesh with a healthy glow. Shirk asked about her brain. Salush said they would give her a low dose of poison that would fend it off from her brain, otherwise she'd be a drooling mess. And it's not really a poison. The Utulu just doesn't like its taste. Isn't nature neat?
This is like one of the weirdest shit I've ever read, to be honest. Like, okay, all right. I mean, I'll go with it. I mean, it fits, right? No pun intended.
Jesus. You went there.
I did.
when you told because you texted me and told me there was something weird in this section, and I was not prepared at all for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird.
I think you responded with Ootulu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell? I don't know that I've got a lot to talk about on this section. You know, they show up early, right? Tahol and Shirk, they show up early to Solutions, and she's like freaking out about it. And a couple hundred heartbeats, right? So like, I'm thinking they showed up like 2 to 3 minutes early, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's the big deal? Maybe it's not a big deal for them, but it's obviously a big deal to Salush. But a couple hundred heartbeats. I did think it was kind of funny because Shirk doesn't have a heartbeat. So
Yeah. Right.
and then just the name Salush, it made me think of Salusha from Wheel of Time. I kept getting that in my head.
You might have to remind me who that character is. It's been a minute since I've read The Wheel of Time.
One of the Shan Chan.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't remember what the position was or anything, but
yeah.
I didn't have any specific comments on the Utulu, but like when I started reading this and I started putting the pieces together, I kind of had like the same reaction as to whole like, wait a second, is this am I picking up what you're putting down here? And I'm like, oh, okay, I indeed am. That's weird. So
yeah. Yeah, like I said, when I read this, I was just like, there's no fucking way. Like, wow. Like, okay. All right.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything else you want to pick out of there that you want to talk about. If you're good.
Nope.
I guess I'm good.
She's getting a makeover.
Yeah, she is.
Next section here. Just before dawn, he entered his master's home. He was tired and exhausted, mainly due to the blessing he had given the Narek for her burial. 2 strides in and he stopped. Seated on the floor opposite him was Shand. She asked where the bastard Tahol was. Bug told her that his master was working, and that he was incredibly tired and didn't feel like conversing. Shand interrupted and said that she didn't care. She continued her interrogation, asking questions like what Tahol was working on, or what Tahol was working on. She asked what type of work he needed to be doing while the rest of humanity slept. He tried to reiterate his tiredness, but Shand demanded an answer. He explained that there are many investments to consider to which all else rests. Shand said that there couldn't be any business to be done at night. Bug agreed that that type of business couldn't be done at night, but there are dangers and threats that need to be dealt with. Speaking of threats, he inquired about why Shand was without her bodyguard. She explained that Ublala was in Risar's bed at the moment, or maybe even Heejin's. She explained that they take turns. After a moment of silence, Shand asked if what Bug had said was true, about all the investments. Bug said that yeah, it was true. Shand wonders why Tahol isn't telling them about these things. Bug explains that these investments, the ones that even Shand and the others are tied up in, must remain separate, disconnected so that there isn't a traceable pattern back to them. He assures Shand that all will eventually become clear, but for now, to follow Tahol's instructions precisely. Shand expresses that she hates geniuses. Bug said that he completely understood that sentiment, but eventually one gets used to it. Shand then asked how Bug's construction was going. Bug said that everything was going well enough. Shand asked what the purpose of it was. He said, no, it was to attract the contract for the Eternal Domicile. Shand stared for a moment and then asked why. All Bug could do was smile. So, a couple thoughts here. It doesn't say interrogation in the book, but it sure felt like an interrogation when I was reading it. And, I mean, I guess I can understand her impatience for it. But, I mean, are they, like... I mean, I guess part of me understands the impatience, but some of me doesn't. Because, like, why are they trying to get this done so fast? Or at least in place by the time the great meeting takes place? I mean, why do you feel like there's such a deadline? I mean, did you pick up on that impatience as well, or...
I don't remember if I picked up on the impatience, but I mean, I feel like they want that eternal domicile done before like the next age comes in, right?
That's what I'm assuming, right?
So beyond that, I guess I don't really have any.
So
Anything.
maybe they're trying to stop whatever is going to happen at the beginning of that new age.
Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe to, like, keep that age from coming.
Could be.
In some way, shape, or form, you know? I mean, the other thing is, you know, Shand explains that all three of them share Ublala, and all I could say was lucky dude. Lucky dude. He's got some 3 meaty women.
You're jealous?
Yes. Very jealous. And then,
I will leave
you know,
leave you in your jealousy. Sorry.
yeah, no, that's okay. Then the last thought was, you know, when she asks about the eternal domicile, and all Bug could do is smile. And I mean, like you kind of predicted, it's got to be the reason why they want to get that contract for the eternal domicile, unless it's just unlimited access to the king's palace and stuff. And per the map, the eternal domicile is across the way from the Azath house. And I wonder if it has something to do with keeping an eye on it.
Oh, maybe. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, you know, like there's the canal, the river, and then there's like the docks, and then you got the Azath house, and then you've got the eternal domicile, like right over there.
It's a good thought.
But yeah, those were my only thought. I feel like the last half of this chapter goes by real quick.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like informational things, and maybe like check-ins, I guess you could call it.
Sure.
So
yeah.
But yeah, I'm ready to move on.
Well, I got another shorter section here. There was a whole ass cleaning ritual. Then it was time for the pump. That's when Tahol went outside for some fresh air. The sky was starting to lighten, and some of the crazier citizens of the city were starting to wake up. A rooster crowed, but its call was quickly cut off. Steps to Tahol's right stopped. It was Salush's assistant, calling to see if he was still here. Tahol asked how Padarant was doing this morning. The man always had a sour look on his face. The man said he was sleepless and called Tahol a snake. The women were still in there, and it was a lost cause, just like he, Tahol, was. What would his mother think? Tahol said Padarant knew his mother's corpse, but before that they had never met him. Padarant asked if he thought that meant she didn't tell him about herself. The soul inside shapes the flesh. Tahol replied with an, "Oh my." And Padarant said, "This is what happens when an old man gets no sleep." A clay pot exploded between them, followed by yelling from the window of the building opposite of them. Padarant said even the neighbors were getting cranky at his being here. Tahol told him to chill out. He only asked how his morning was, and his answer was supposed to be something simple as well. If he wanted a list of problems, well, he wouldn't. Padarant asked how the hell he was supposed to know that, and told him to follow him. There's a place nearby that makes good rice cakes and rust leaf tea that could wake the dead. Tahol said rust leaf tea would wake the dead. Padarant said it should have worked. Tahol said, alas, it had not. Padarant doubled down and said, it still should have. It doubles your heart rate, and it will make you puke up everything in your stomach. Tahol couldn't wait. Padarant said it's also a good bug repellent. Can't recommend it enough. Tahol said most people smoke it, not drink it. Padarant called them barbarians and said they had arrived. And Tahol was buying, wasn't he? Tahol said he didn't have any money. Padarant said then it would go on Salush's account and Tahol would just have to pay later. 2 quick thoughts here. With this Utulu, the only thing I can think of when I hear the word pump is Austin Powers and his penis pump. His Swedish pump. So.
Yep.
And then, Padarant, I know he's being kind of cranky, where he's talking to Tahol here, but he's got this line saying the soul inside shapes the flesh, and I liked that, and I think there's probably some truth to that.
I would say so. Shirk's attitude about the lack of flesh maybe is a representation of not shaping the soul inside.
Could be.
Like it's purely, it's like a, an outside, what you feel on the inside reflects on the outside type of thing.
Yeah.
Shirk got a makeover, and all of that was purely aesthetic, right? Which probably makes her feel better about herself, which then increases the soul. I don't know.
I think there could definitely be some truth to that, though, for sure.
Well, I mean, you ready to move on?
Yeah. What is this? Is this your last one, or do you have one more after that?
Nope, this is my last one.
Oh boy! All right, yeah, take it away, man.
All right. Shirk Aleli stood in front of the mirror. She found herself wondering its worth with all that's silver before she noticed the reflection inside of it. She looked healthy, and her hair was clean and had been cut for the first time in years. The tattered clothes she had had on before had been replaced. She said that she looked like a whore. Salush replied and said not just any old whore, though. Shirk agreed and added that first she'd take your coin and then kill you. That's how she looked. Salush said that there were plenty of men out there looking for that. Shirk asked if that meant them getting killed. Salush said of course, but was led to believe that this wasn't Shirk's profession, but she suspected that Shirk was willing to try something new. She asked how the Utulu felt. Shirk replied and said that it was hungry, and she asked if she could feed it something else. Salush cooed and said that she loved this, as it was experimentation. Shirk didn't reply, as she felt that some comments didn't need one. Shirk then flexed her breathing muscles, and saw that it had been a while since she'd used them. It was strange to feel the air flow down her throat. The exhale smelt nice, and she thought to herself that it was better than mud water. Shirk told Salush that her work was acceptable. Salush was happy to hear this and said that she was hungry. She asked Shirk if she would like to meet up with Hole and her assistant at the nearby restaurant to break their fast. Shirk said that she thought she wasn't supposed to eat or drink. Salush said she was correct, but that didn't mean she couldn't go to preen and flirt, though. Shirk just stared at the woman. Salush smiled and then said out loud where her shawl was. I only have one comment. Apologize for maybe the graphic nature of this comment, but do you think that this Utulu is kind of like a vagina dentata type thing? Like when it's hungry, her partners will lose their things, and when it's not, Shirk will actually feel pleasure? If this isn't the case, I wonder what it would look like to feed this thing. Like, what does it mean by feed it? Like, is this just, I'm grabbing a piece of chicken and I'm putting it between my legs and there it goes? Or, like, is this like a, sexual intercourse type thing, right?
That's what I imagined, yeah. But I didn't think to the darkness that you brought to it, with, like, with things being removed.
I mean...
I hope it's not that, because then I feel like word's going to get around town and it's going to be difficult to find feedings.
So then how does this thing eat? I mean, it has to ingest something.
I'm going to just guess through the act.
Gotcha.
Completion.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So, like, built-in birth control.
Maybe? I don't know. I don't know that we're going to get that much detail on how this thing operates. That's probably okay.
So basically, she can tell if someone's faking it.
Maybe. Or maybe it's just I don't know if somehow the friction would satisfy it. I don't know.
Interesting. I don't know if that's an Erickson question, but I'm definitely curious.
I don't know what the hell he would tell us.
I mean, has he been asked about the Utulu before? I mean, I feel like it's not...
We could jot it down and ask him if he's been asked about it, and then just go from there.
I mean, it's so funny because, like, I feel like, for him to write these books, I mean, he's obviously got good sense of humor, right? Like,
yeah.
I feel like most interviews are so serious, but maybe he just wants to, like, giggle a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, ready to wrap this chapter up? Boy, I shouldn't have used that wording.
That's fair. All right. Yeah, take her home.
All right.
Get it?
Yeah. I wasn't sure if that's what you meant at first.
That's totally what I meant. All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you for allowing me to have my darker moment there. But, and just again, like the Tenaskari, and the what is it, the Dead Seed or whatever. Like I had some
Yeah.
questions about logistics, right?
Yeah. Well, there you go. I think that would be a good way you could word it. You could ask him logistically, how does this thing feed?
There you go. There you go. All right. Fair enough. We'll make him
7.
go into the details for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Kuru Kwan left and returned with 2 assistants to carry Breeze back to the Sita's bedchamber, where he was laid down and given food and drink. Even at that, his strength was slow to return. When Nefatus entered, he was still laying down. He asked Breeze if he was well enough to meet the king in only a few moments. Breeze said it was unfortunate, and he was, at the moment, unequal to his responsibilities. Nefatus said that didn't matter. The king just wanted to make sure he would recover. King Discanar is being genuine in his concern, and he told Breeze to stay still, and he had never seen him so pale. Kuru Kwan said something, and something had fed on his blood, but Breeze would not say what. Nefata said he couldn't imagine a god doing such a thing. Breeze told him Mail was not there. The Edur had found something else and bound it to their service. Nefatus asked if he could tell him what it was. Breeze said a forgotten god. That was as much as he knew. He didn't know its nature. He didn't know its nature or the full spectrum of its power. It is old, older than the ocean itself, and whatever worshipped it was not human. King Discanar entered. Even though he was in his 60s, he didn't look that old. His face was a little messed up from a childhood run-in with a horse. It left him with a wandering eye, and healers could have fixed it, but he forbade them from doing so. Uncensored with his outward appearance, that and he even dressed like a normal person, rather than one might think of a king dressing. Breeze was able to give a slight bow with his head while he was laying down and apologized to the king. King Discanar said apologies were not necessary, and it should be him apologizing to Breeze with these unpleasant tasks that took him from his normal duties. He acknowledged he had abused Breeze's loyalty, and now he suffers for it. Breeze said he would be fine. Asgara smiled and said this was a fell gathering at the moment, and they should be happy that his wife was laying breathless beneath her consort right now. Even her most trusted spies wouldn't intrude to report on this meeting. When that does happen, though, hopefully it will be too late. Nefata said he would be the first to leave if the king so permits it. The time for him to leave the city is fast approaching, and he isn't prepared yet. The king was surprised by this, saying he is usually diligent in such matters, but he could go, if only to make sure his spies are aware of exactly when her spies make their report, so that they can then make their report, and then he can report to him, the king. Although he wasn't sure what he would do with that information, especially since that everyone, the event that everyone would be reporting on was currently going on in this room. Nefatus said as the king knew, none could rest in this dance. The king said he understood and told Nefatus to get the hell out of here. As soon as he left, the king faced Kuru Kwan and said the chancellor continues to petition against Finad Garen Ebrick's attachment to the delegation, and he has compelling arguments. The Sita said he, Garen, feared for the life of the king's son. The king asked if the Finad's restraint was so weakened that they would make an attempt on his son's life. The Sita said he hoped not. The king continued asking if he thought his son understood the risk and would act with constraint. Kuru Kwan said Prince Quillis had been advised of the risk and dangers, and he had gathered his most trusted bodyguards under the command of Morak Nevath. The king looked at Breeze and said he presumed that Nevath felt up to the task of guarding his son's life. Breeze said Nevath was killed and would have tasters in line before the prince and mages with a bunch of wards. Kuru said the mages he can speak to. He had lost a fair number of the students to the queen. The king said they seek the balance in the threat and rely on the wisdom of the players. Should one side act preemptively, everything will unravel quickly. The king asked Breeze if Nevath was able to advise restraint. Breeze thought so. In that case, the king said then the real question was whether his son could receive it. Nobody had an answer for that. The king, after a moment, looked back to Breeze and said he looked forward to when he was back to full strength, but was happy he was on the mend for now. He left the chamber, but at the door he spoke without turning back and said he thought that Garen will need to reduce his entourage. The door closed and the two men were left alone. The Sita looked at Breeze and shrugged. Breeze spoke, saying if wherewithal was an important virtue, he trailed off. Kuru Kwan finished the sentence and said their king would be a god, and now they staked their lives on that. He said that was a curious observation to make at this time. He wanted to know more about Breeze's journey. Breeze said he only wanted to right a wrong, and as a consequence, the Edur will not be able to bind any more forgotten gods. The Sita said it was worth it then. Breeze hoped so. The Sita continued and asked what the old witches said downtown. Quote, the end of the world is announced with a kind word. Breeze winced, and the Sita continued, saying, they just use that as an excuse to be rude to old men. Breeze said they have another saying, quote, truth hides in colorless clothes. The Sita said it couldn't be the same witches, otherwise they would be the best liars in the mortal world. Breeze just smiled, but he could taste the ash in his mouth. Sorry, I kind of stumbled there at the end.
Oh, good. I did it throughout the whole episode.
Got a couple thoughts on this final section here. You know, they're asking Breeze about this forgotten god or whatever it was he dealt with, and he says it's older than the ocean itself, and whatever worshipped it wasn't human, and that definitely got my interest peaked. I'm very curious on what more we will learn of that.
Yeah, I'm very curious as well, because I'm even now struggling to, like, what's older than the ocean itself.
All right, yeah, I have no idea.
I kind of wonder if it has something to do with, like the formation of the Earth and the planets.
Maybe.
Because I get the sense the holds are relating to, like, creationism.
Yeah, kind of like elements and stuff.
Yeah.
Elementals, something like that. I'm not sure. My next thought is on the king here, and I don't know if if I'm picking up things correctly, or if maybe it's just kind of a ploy or something, but he doesn't seem to be very vain or anything like that, right? Like, his face is fucked up from getting kicked in the face by a horse, or whatever happened, something with a horse.
Yeah.
And, like, the mages, the healers could have fixed it, and he's like, nope, not worried about it. And then, you know, he doesn't dress like you would think a king should, right? Like, he's just wearing everyday Joe Schmo clothes, not wearing, you know, the silks or whatever, you know, the fancy robes and all that type of crap. He's just, you know, regular everyday dude. If that's true, if there's not some sneakiness behind it or something, then I think that's a good thing. Curious if it's a front or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I didn't get any, like, the type of vibe where it's a facade by any means. I mean, from what I understand about the events is that the king wants to make peace with the Edur, essentially bribing them with coin, but
sure,
as we know, the Edur they're not for that, right? So
yeah,
I don't think that is going to land, but I mean, the intent is kind of what I'm looking at, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
My last thought here, you know, the king's saying that his wife is busy with her consort right now, and even her most trusted spies wouldn't intrude to report on this meeting. So, like, are her spies busy watching her and the consort? Like, are they just some pervs or what?
I didn't really know what to think about that, but that's an interesting twist, for sure.
Just like peeping through like the keyhole or something. Like,
maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to add to that one for sure.
That's okay. I didn't really have anything else on the rest of the section here.
It was really convoluted, wasn't it?
It was kind of messy.
I didn't know what to make of it.
And even like these two quotes that the witches downtown used, right? Like, the end of the world is announced with a kind word.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a cool quote, but I don't really know what to make of it. And then, you know, truth hides in colorless clothes. Another thing, like, I don't know, just kind of throwing darts at a board right now, but like that one, like maybe the king's clothes aren't colorless, but they're like plain clothes. Is that like alluding to the king, do you think? I don't know.
It could be. It could be. It's hard to say what exactly or who they're referring to after the king leaves, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's definitely more pieces, but, you know, as always, par for the course, like, not really a huge understanding at this moment, but I'll be very excited to read the next chapter, because it's been a month. So,
yeah.
I don't know if I have anything in the way of prediction, but, I mean, it would be cool to see the Sengar camp set out. Yeah, set out on their journey and maybe experience their first shortcoming or something, you know?
Whatever they're going to run to. I know this next chapter, I think, is a little shorter. I think it's like 30 pages.
Yeah, it's 30-ish. So I'm probably going to go upstairs and read it.
That'll be kind of nice to have. This chapter was pretty long and some big sections, so it was, like I said before, just kind of everything else going on. It was hard to like get in the headspace to like want to do it. So, but like you, I'm excited to finally read on here, get another chapter in the bag, and keep going with this story.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, things have definitely seemed like they've settled down on my end. I don't know about you, but I'll definitely try to start summarizing Monday.
Yeah, I think, things have settled down a little bit here. So, but then I add this judging thing onto my plate too. So it might be a little bit to juggle, but it was a neat opportunity that doesn't always come up. And that's kind of why I jumped at it, wanted to do it. So
that's fair. Well, another good 3-hour episode. I think that's, usually par for the course. So, well, I'll let you go.
Cool, man. Well, it was good to talk to you again. It's been a long time and felt good to get back here. And let's hopefully it won't be so long next time.
For sure. Absolutely, sir.
All right, man. Well, you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good, man. Take her easy.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest.